Good afternoon and good evening, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing on a very sorrowful day for the people of Great Britain, the Commonwealth of England, and to all of us here around the world who stand in mourning with our friends across the pond as they mourn their queen and a true lady and a true monarch, Queen Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor II. May she rest in peace.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. And also, welcome back to the Council of One's Babylon 5 review. Hope you all are having a good day. Although I think for all of us in some small way, today is not necessarily a good day. Though we may not be subjects of the British crown any longer, we still mourn an extraordinary woman. But as the whole saying goes, the show must go on. And today we will be sharing with you our thoughts on the episode "The Long Road" from Crusade. And gentlemen, good to see you all, and to all of those who are watching us live, whether it be on YouTube, on Twitter, or on Facebook. Hope you all enjoy the stream. And as the next couple of days go on, take a moment, and if you are so inclined, say a prayer for Her Majesty and for those that she leaves behind, both her family and those she served. But today we are continuing on with our review series on Crusade, the spinoff series of Babylon 5, created by a true genius, J. Michael Straczynski. And gentlemen, good to see you both. It's been a week, and Geek, welcome back. Good to have you on board, buddy. And unfortunately, Fiona Wolf will not be joining us this afternoon. She has unfortunately been called away to the Zocalo to do her due diligence, but she was kind enough to leave a few notes for us. So we will bring those up as the stream goes along, and we'll allow her verbally to share her thoughts or anything with us and with you all. So, gentlemen, let's open the discussion. The Long Road, a very interesting episode, to be sure. So, just your initial thoughts on this episode. What y'all think?
I would. Oh, go ahead, Mountains.
No. I was just thinking, considering how we're watching it in the intended order, this episode will be as far more impact because of what happened last week with the rogue technomage. We're seeing another technomage acting as, well, we're not sure at first, is he being evil or is he being good, or what is his stance? And the new order makes this work a lot better. But Peter Woodward's with Galen's real life father playing the technomage.
I was not aware of that. I did not know that the actor who played Alwyn was Woodward's father. I guess I missed that.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yes.
Yeah, on my DVD, this is episode 2.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's not in the I guess chronological order, which this is one of the downfalls of Crusade. I mean, they were dead on arrival, unfortunately. I mean, with what we heard about what happened with season 5 and everything, and then Crusade. I mean, I think I actually read it one time. It was almost canceled before it was pretty much canceled before it even aired.
Yeah,
But
sadly.
this episode I thought really had an interesting thing because it actually drew on things that I think a lot of us want to know was what powers a technomage really has. And
Yeah.
I remember, and it was interesting in this episode where he mentions, all the other techno mages or those people left like cowards, and he stayed. And I think that was a very big reference to in the first season of Babylon 5
Actually, it
when
was second season.
oh, second season, okay, but you know what episode I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear that, it was a nice thing to know that, like any culture or any, group of people, you're not a monolith.
Well, I will bring up a few of Fiona's notes here. How fun, Galen, with the right amount of wisdom and sass. Very true. Something else she also mentioned. Captain Gideon, you know something about this, don't you? And Galen's, perhaps, if I'm right, it's definitely something you should see. And and Gideon's like, and if you're wrong, oh, there's hardly seems likely. That hardly seems likely, does it?
That was
That
pretty funny.
Well, and that's something else Fiona to bring up. She says, I did find it funny that the actors are family playing off each other. The Woodwards, even if the characters aren't related in the same way for the show for the show this evening. Yeah, because very rarely do you see family members act off one another, and it was kind of cool to see. The only other situation I've ever seen where two family members work together on any number of films was actually it was an old John Carpenter film, The Fog, where Jamie Lee Curtis and her real life mom, Jamie Lee Curtis and Janet Leigh worked together on that film.
Oh, I thought you were
And
going to say Wall Street.
I don't think I've ever seen Wall Street, actually.
Oh,
But
really?
no.
Well, that was Michael Douglas and
his father, Kirk.
no, not Kurt Douglas. That although I think Michael and Kurt Douglas did, but no, it was his son Charlie Sheen. Or yeah, it was. Maybe I got those guys mixed up.
You've got that screwed up because Martin Sheen is
sorry.
Charlie Sheen's father.
Yes, sorry, Martin Sheen, not Michael Douglas. Sorry, but too many Michaels in film.
Yes,
they were great in Hot Shots Part 2 as well.
But yeah, you had Michael Sheen and Charlie Sheen in Wall Street, and I didn't know until later on that Emilio Estevez was also their brother. Was also Charlie Sheen's brother.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Colin brings up, minus part, we did get to see the Exodus from another point of view in another episode. Oh, he's talking about the Technomage Exodus. Yeah. So, at least I'm assuming that's what you're referencing, Colin. The thing I found interesting about this episode is it deals with something that I think was handled better in this episode than was in the movie. And that is, of course, Star Trek Insurrection, where you've got a small group of people that have migrated to a planet, yet they don't necessarily belong there. And they have a resource that somebody else wants. But in this particular instance, it's with Star Trek Insurrection, the Federation wants it just because they want it. They want it. In this particular instance, the Earth Alliance or the Interstellar Alliance needs this resource on the planet because of the Drak plague. But the problem is, in both instances, they're using less than ethical means to get the resource that they need. No, Colin, I did get that reference. It just at first didn't dawn on me that Edward Woodward was the same actor that played in The Equalizer from a series I love from the 1980s. So no, I got your joke, Colin. I don't know if Geek or Elysium did though. But
no, I never saw The Equalizer from the 80s, so no, I did not get the reference.
You uncultured swine.
Hey, man, hey, I'm backlogging enough here now that I found out I'm taking my wife to see Jaws tomorrow at 4:30, and she's never seen the goddamn movie in her life, and I'm taking her to see it in the theater.
Well, good. That'll be a good experience for her.
Oh, it's going to be a great experience for me. I always wanted to see it in theater.
Same here. But
Well, if you get a chance, good luck, bud.
That's gonna be on the books.
What did you think about what did you think about, how they manipulate both illusion and then physical kinetic interaction with their magic? I mean, it's technology, but it seems like technology that is always a little bit ahead of everybody else.
Well, I mean, I do want to touch upon that point. But I want to kind of dig into the idea of Earth Alliance coming in and just kind of strip mining the planet for this antiviral resource. And you've got people that are already living there. How did you all feel about that particular element of the episode? We will touch on what you brought up, Geek, but I want to
No,
this
you're
one
fine.
first.
No.
I think it's always wrong to exploit. It should, when something like that becomes necessary, you should always deal with the local population. I mean, you hear the locals saying that they were willing to discuss, willing to help, but I think some were just so desperate to get access to that antiviral that they just didn't care about the locals.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes the same in our world. Local peoples, local tribes all over the world are exploited by corporation states, sometimes for what they think is good, sometimes for profit. I don't think it was for profit here, but they still should have dealt with the locals because they clearly just didn't care what damage they were doing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, go ahead, Geek. Go ahead.
I would say from my perspective, yes, I would say Mountains of Elysium has that. You'll pretty much nail down. Uh, Unfortunately, as I had in a previous profile on Twitter that I haven't re-put in, I said we're not civilized people. We're savages living within rules. Once those rules don't apply, you'll see a side of people you did not think possible if you're not someone like me and does not understand what humans are capable of. If you look at, for example, the show The Expanse or the book in The Expanse, where Amos talks about a tribe of two. He goes, when everything's good, your tribe is big. When things are bad, your tribe will shrink down to the basics. And when survival becomes the main goal, comforts go the wayside very quickly. If that makes any sense, what I just said.
Yes. Because if you notice, the people on the planet, when things were going well for them, they were very congenial, very warm, very welcoming, so to speak. But when things started to go sideways, they resorted to their more baser instincts, more combative, more confrontational instincts rather than their rational. It took Alwyn saying, "Hey, when I moved here, you all were decent people. This was a good place for for all of us to live in. But now you all have become too reliant upon me, and because of the situation, I have realized that it is in fact time for me to move on." And I think in a lot of ways, the situation was actually, I think, advantageous for Alwyn as well, because it made him realize he had stayed in one place for far too long and he needed to move on. Now, granted, how the commander of the Earth Force ship, the Medusa, how he was react interacting with the people of the planet was in itself very confrontational, which actually shows, I think, one part a bit of desperation, but I think desperation driven by or okay, he was desperate, but also he was giving into his more baser instincts rather than dealing more diplomatically with the people of the planet, saying, "Hey, we're needing this resource. Is there a way you can help us find it and do it in a way that's not going to be as ecologically damaging to you all or to even the planet?" And I think, honestly, this episode really is an eye opener for Gideon because he sees, I think, somewhat of himself and sees something in himself where he could go to those ends. I mean, if you remember just a couple episodes ago, he bowed to his better angels and told that keeper on that one planet, we will give you the information we need to help cure your people free of charge, and we won't go about finding the cure in the barbaric way that you all do. But you have this Earth Force commander who's like, we're just going to go in and we've got the technology and we'll just bust some heads if we have to. And he even tells his lieutenant, the only way you're going to get promoted is with some combat experience. This will be a cakewalk for you. And that's not the best way to deal with other people in a confrontational way. It's sometimes better to try and reason with them, but unfortunately not everybody has the diplomatic skills to do so. If that makes any lick of sense whatsoever, I hope it did.
Yeah, one of the things is when you have the desperation, you got to remember the captain is just an errand boy. I mean, you have to remember. I know that the whole thing, Captain Colonel, sounds so big. General Admiral sounds so huge, but you got to remember they got to take orders from civilians. They got to take orders from the secretary, the vice president, the president. And when leadership like that is under stress, oh man. So with Earth Force and them realizing there's only about 5 years maybe for them to live, you can imagine the strain this is on all of them out there trying to do this, because if Earth falls, which obviously we know it doesn't, but if Earth falls, where is their home now? Where do they go? Where does humanity stand? It's more than just the people of Earth. It's Earth itself. It's home. It's the belief in that. And if the idea of losing that is so devastating that yes, you're going to have leadership and desperation because they're dying, and then everybody outside of it is busting their ass trying to do everything they can to prevent it, stall it, and save everyone. That you don't get much more stressful than that.
Yeah, very true. I did want to bring up your point that you brought up a few minutes ago, Geek, and I've got Archer's or Colin's comment here. I wonder if the idea of the techno mages was partly inspired by Clark's aphorism: "Any sufficiently advanced technology will be indistinguishable from magic."
Archer Colin, I've heard a term like that before. I don't think I've ever heard it quoted exactly that way, but yes, if you think about it logically, anything that is advanced in scientific way without the person being able to understand it would seem like magic or otherworldly or other natural. I mean, because they can't process it because they don't have it comes down to what I say. You're not stupid, you're just ignorant. I'm not stupid about a car. I'm ignorant of how to repair it. If any of that made any sense.
Yes, it did. So, Elysium, your thoughts?
Oh, got something in private chat here.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll mention that earlier. Sorry, I was just,
Okay. No,
Yeah.
we'll definitely bring that up later. Thank you for mentioning that, Elysium, because I did see that tweet by JMS the other
Oh,
day.
really? I didn't. I missed that one.
I was
We'll bring it up later.
yeah,
no
We will
worries.
just mentioning there. Kind of, Colin was mentioning Starship Troopers earlier, and it was
Yes.
in my notes that we were talking about the people on the planet, and in the book Starship Troopers, one of the questions, I think it was maybe Colonel Dubois, or it was a later character, asked, "When is it right to help someone? Should you start a war for 1,000,000 people or 1,000 people? If 1,000 people were held in captivity, should you start a war to free them?" And the moral thing was Johnny was the one who answered, no, you should start that war for one. Because if you wrong one person, you wrong an entire civilization. That you can't separate the one from the many. And that's one of the conundrums here. Those people are just a small group of people, but their rights matter as much as the 10 billion that the situation would be saving.
That is an interesting parallel you bring up, Starship Troopers, which I have read the book. I think it's absolutely fantastic a book, and I had totally forgotten about that quote, but I had remembered a similar reference to it from another thing. It's like you can't think about saving everybody. That's too big. You need to think about only saving one and then the next one and go from there. You can't think about saving billions of people. It's too much. And that's what I think they were doing. Whereas you had Earth Force thinking, we got to save everyone. Whereas these people are down there just thinking, I need to save my daughter. I need to save my son, my husband, wife. I need to save that person. The town was just, a backdrop in that aspect. Of course, they want to save those people, but those are their family. They are that close.
Yeah. Well, and it comes down. It comes down to a simple premise. All life is precious. All life should be protective at all possible. All life should be saved. And Gideon, even though the situation is very tense, he's like, we're going to take your daughter on board our ship. We're going to save your daughter's life. And then we're going to try and figure out this other situation. But you got kind of the Joker in the deck and everything in terms of Alwyn, because Alwyn realizes he's got to do something to intervene for these people that, though he verbally berates, but I don't think unjustifiably so, because they did act in bad faith. Because he says only a coward or a criminal takes a hostage.
Which are you?
Which are you here? And
he tried to appeal to them.
He did. He tried to appeal to them. And when that didn't work, then he made all the appearances of going to both. And I think if they hadn't if the Excalibur had not fired on him, he very well may have carried out that spell. But I think he knew also that Gideon was willing to sacrifice one man's life, and also that, dang it, Geek, you threw me off. It's okay.
Sorry, man. That was my alarm to take my meds.
It's okay. Alwyn knew that Gideon would go that far to save the other two Earth Force ships. But I think deep down, Gideon also knew that Alwyn had a way out of the situation should it turn against him. And obviously, we see that Alwyn does, in fact, survive. He doesn't get destroyed. And the situation is resolved. And it's resolved in a way that's mutually beneficial for everybody. The people of the planet are going to help the Earth Force group find deposits of these antiviral mineral and extract it in such a way that it won't harm the rest of the populace. But this is a very interesting display of diplomacy on multiple levels and by multiple routes. You have diplomacy in terms of by brute force. You have diplomacy through persuasion. You have diplomacy through reason, and
through a little bit of misdirection.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. So, Geek, Elysium, your thoughts on that particular paradigm in the episode?
Well, I always felt that it was an illusion where that anything was happening. I don't think Alwyn would have done anything. It was more of a case to bring the situation to a close. Galen knew. I think Gideon probably suspected. I also think it's the only way it could have ended, because it was a nice touch that the local people said, "Oh, well, you're our ace in the hole." They accepted him as a local, as one of them, and expected him to act in the same way they would. "I'll help my neighbor. I'll stand by my neighbor." But they were very wary of outsiders. And like Fiona touched on that they were given away when they walked into the bar with the coin that could have bought the whole bar. And yeah, that Alwyn's was never going to be a sacrifice. It was always misdirection, but Gideon didn't know that.
Yeah, because the other interesting aspect of this episode is this is the first time we really see two techno mages interact with one another. Now, obviously, in the Techno Mage trilogy of books, this probably takes place a lot more often. But one particular scene that I found that I absolutely loved was when the Earth Force soldiers break into the tavern, and then Alwyn and Gideon come in, and Alwyn releases that spell of demons or trolls or whatever they were, and they're flying around and attacking, and they're coming on the appearance of the demons, and there was such a nice back and forth between the two of them. Obviously, this is a father and son working with one another, so they know each other's humor. They know each other's how the other one's brain works, how their delivery works with one. Oh, thank you, Elysium.
Good.
Thank you, Elysium.
Yeah.
The teeth were a very nice touch. You think so? Not too big? No, I think they're just about right. I suppose you're right.
I mean,
go ahead, Geek.
Well, I would say the whole thing was, when you really come down to it, he realized that town was relying too much on him, and they were getting stagnant now, and he realized it's time to move on. Now the town sees him as a martyr and an inspiration to look up to. And you get that from when the bartender, he's like, last thing he said to us was he was ashamed of us. And he's right. I mean, that's pretty powerful and that's going to stay with them for quite a long time, because they lost a valuable figure in their community, and I don't think they realized how much they took advantage of that, or they just expected him to always be there.
Yeah. I don't think necessarily that they took advantage of him or he was domineering towards them, but that's not the impression I got of Alwyn. As he
No, I
said,
think they got a little too attached to each other, a little too dependent on one another. That might be a better way to put it.
yeah, no, I do think that's very accurate. And I do want to say hello to Chad Bureau 31. Good afternoon. Good to see you. The the dynamic between Alwyn and Galen, and the fact that we find out that Elric was Galen's teacher, and as I understand it, and if I understood it correctly, also his father, or at least a father figure. And it's, it was, I think, a nice little touch to acknowledge the fact that the actor who played Elric, Michael Anserna, did pass away. And they made it where Elric also passed away in the universe. But it's interesting to see how techno mages interact with one another when it's like a mentor and apprentice. But here's the thing: this is an apprentice that has excelled at his craft, and he's almost to the point of where he's on equal footing with his former mentor. And to see what Galen did in the previous episode, trying to deal with that machine that rogue technomage had built, was really quite something. Now, I will say one thing: even though the effects were quite dated, it was really cool to see a giant gold dragon with red eyes breathe fire. I don't know how you all felt, but I loved it. And when Alwyn was like, nobody uses gold dragons anymore, he's like, I just thought it was a nice touch. I did. When
when it came to shows like that, you can go all the way back to Star Trek when you watch the originals. You had good story, you forgave the effects. And I mean, they were trying to be groundbreaking with Babylon 5. They were trying it with the same thing with Crusade. Does it look dated? Yes, but could it be updated? Fuck yes. Sorry. Just saying.
It would be interesting to see them go back and remaster, not just remaster, but touch up the special effects. But I don't think the budget would be there. But I do wonder, would more people give it time if the special effects were updated?
Yeah, the thing was though, especially with Babylon 5, the practical effects and the story and the characters were so dynamic that even now it's like, okay, yeah, the CGI is dated, we get that, but hell, so is The Last Starfighter, and that wasn't even technically CGI, but the story was so damn good, we still love it, just like Tron. Oh man, I got way off topic there. I'm sorry, Ambassador.
No, you're fine, geek. You're fine. Well, and that's something that we have always brought up, even when we were covering Babylon 5 and now that we're covering Crusade. We don't come back to these shows because of the effects. We come back to these shows because the characters are dynamic, the story is compelling, and the performances are captivating. And yes, that CGI dragon looks very dated into our 2022 eyes, but at the same time, it's forgivable because the actor who's portraying Alwyn is a dynamic, a very good actor. He does his thing and he does it well. And
Hey, look at King Kong, look at Godzilla. That's all I'm going to say about special effects. They're still heralded.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine, Gabe. Well, I mean, look at the original King Kong. It
Yeah,
was stop
motion
motion.
animation.
It was stop motion, and it worked. And it's heralded as one of the for its time, and even now as a huge advancement in cinematic filmmaking.
Oh yes.
CG computer generated imaging is just stop motion animation taken to its next evolutionary phase.
Well, we
Now
went
they could
from
probably nowadays make that dragon look as good as any dragon we saw in Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon currently. But
yeah.
we're not discussing the show. We're not reviewing the show because we want to see near photorealistic dragons. We're watching and discussing the show because of the discussion that it brings up.
Well, also anything when we think about um, Game of Thrones or House of the Dragons, hence because you were bringing up the dragon CGI, we had to start somewhere. And we got the CGI just got better and better and better. Stop motion became less of a thing. Go motion. Then we got the CGI stuff, and then it slowly the texturing, the layering all got better over time. To now they can de-age people or age people digitally. It had to start somewhere, and I mean it all started back when somebody just decided to put a flip book together and make it look like something was moving.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think every generation of advancement and experiment deserves a little credit for what they tried.
Yeah. And I'm trying to get back to Fiona's notes, so just bear with me for a second, guys. I won't be a second, promise. Hang on. Oh wait a minute. No, that's not what I want. Let's see. Okay, here's a good one. Somehow with Crusade, each episode presents questions and solutions, but doesn't hit the viewer over the head of what side to pick. If I think of another observation before work, I'll post. And yeah, that's the thing with Babylon 5, with Crusade, with Star Trek. As we've said before, with good sci-fi, these shows present the opportunity to explore the morality of different situations, how we might react in a particular situation. And I think, honestly, this episode, along with, I think this series in general, and obviously we're only 4 episodes in, we've got 11 more. Sadly, that's all we got. Thank you, TNT.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Yeah, I know. But the series, I think, particularly with the intro, asks, who are you and who do you serve? And I think that question is not just for Gideon alone. I think it's for the entire crew of the Excalibur, not to mention every other person working to try and cure the Drak plague. How far are you willing to go, and who do you serve? Do you serve your own interests, or do you serve the greater good? And
Yeah,
I think in a lot. Let me just get this out real quick, Geek.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you serve yourself, or do you serve your own interests? And I think in this particular instance, a large chunk of the Excalibur crew is serving the best possible interests of the population of Earth. Even with Mr. Sleazy Archaeologist, I can't remember his Ellis. Ellis, I think is his name. I think if the show had gone on, we would have seen him evolve into evolve into a better person. So, Geek, your comment.
Um, it's one of those things when the term, like in Star Trek, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or saying we're doing something for the greater good. Well, the thing is, who determines the greater good? Who's greater good? The Earth Alliance or this group of people? Which are they going to decide is the greater good? And that's where it's always such a gray area. People say, we'll do this for the greater good. The greater good for who? Well, everyone. Yeah, that's not how life works. I'm just saying it's one of those slippery slopes when people get desperate and they say, well, it's for the greater good. But like I said, when your tribe is dwindled down, it starts to become a question of survival and who's going to align with who. And if you want a good example of that, if you have never read it, Lord of the Flies is a excellent book on watching civilized boys turn into tribals. If you've never read it,
I have seen a video summary of Lord of the Flies, but I've never read the book. I've never watched the movie, though I know they've done several adaptations of the book. So,
Hmm.
so Elysium, you've been a little quiet. Your thoughts on on anything we brought up?
Oh, sorry. I was just kind of popping some stuff in there. Colin was mentioning the Green Dragon, and I was popping some stuff in the chat, just doing a bit of research. Well, this episode in total is honestly, it's great exploration in morals, the rights of locals, the rights of the whole and the small, the big and the little.
For basic example, for people like me and Ambassador, we live in the same state. It's like, whose rights are more important, our rights or what DC says our rights are? That would be a best way to say it for us, because we both live in the same state. If that made any sense. If it didn't, I apologize.
No, made perfect sense.
How's that dinner?
Not dinner, just a snack. Sorry.
I'm just messing with you, man.
I know, it's fine. Well, to put it succinctly, Spock's quote is, I think, well intentioned. I think does have merit, but I think sometimes the needs of the few should be taken into consideration. Now, you have to quantify what the few is. That's the big thing.
And I think Spock's mom said it best in A Voyage Home, which said, your friends felt the needs of the one, you outweighed the needs of the many, them. Humans
And
make it very illogical decisions. Indeed, they
yes,
do.
Yeah,
But it was
do.
a very poignant point where they decided the needs of the one, their friend, their brother, their comrade in arms was more important than anything else.
And if I might pick on a fellow YouTuber and someone that I do regard as a friend, I was talking about the career of William Shatner with Mr. Zach Leary the other day.
Oh,
And Mr. Leary divulged that he has never seen Star Trek 4 or Star Trek 5. And I'm like, this makes a logical sense. I was like, your geek card is hereby suspended until you watch these films.
How do you feel? How do you
How do you
feel?
feel?
I'm
Tell mother.
sorry, Ambassador. I can't do that. Oh, wait. Wrong movie.
You're thinking of 2001, and you are not.
Oh, no. I did that on purpose.
I know. I'm just like, how you've watched Star Trek 6, you've watched Star Trek the Motion Picture, you've watched Star Trek 2, you've even watched Star Trek 3, but how has he has never watched Star Trek 4 or Star Trek 5?
Okay, now
So
we can all admit he can skip 5 and just watch 2, 3, 4, and 6 and be fine.
but you need to watch 5 at least once.
Okay, I'm not saying you don't. I don't dislike the movie.
I don't
does
either.
God need with Star Trek 5? Sorry.
Oh man,
No,
we
what
got
does
way back
the
here.
quote
Yeah,
is, you uncultured
what-
swine, what does God
What
need
God
with a
need
starship?
with a starship? Yes.
Hey, I'm going to be honest. That was a logical question.
Yes, because why does God need a starship? If God is
True.
God, he should be able to just leave. Why can't you just leave? Oh, that's right. Because you're not really God.
Yes.
I love how when some people try to tell me prove God exists, I'm like, prove me he doesn't. And they why should I do that? I'm like, why should I waste my time trying to prove it to you? I know he exists. I don't need to prove it to anyone. That's a personal choice.
Elysium.
But
That is true.
Ambassador, one thing about this was it really does bring up the big state versus the little state kind of mentality, and how far one side is willing to bend and the other side just is, through no fault of their own, very desperate. And in truth, I don't feel the Earth Alliance was meaning any malintent. They were just so desperate at the time, they weren't thinking in a reasonable way.
There's also the aspect that these people are recent colonists. They're not native to that world.
True.
And it's something I was thinking that they're there as ideology. They went there as almost Amish. They gave up on technology.
Yeah.
Now, they did use Alwyn as almost as a crutch for that. And this is like me being a Catholic. Should someone have the right to override my beliefs or my ideology?
No.
For their benefit? And same with these people. They could be moved with the same ideology to another world. Now, I think that would be completely wrong. But is ideology a good enough reason for them to remain when that entire world could save billions? Now, my belief is, yes, you should not move those people. That is their home. No matter how long or short they've been there, that is their home. But it is something to consider when asking who was right or wrong.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, now the one line in Star Trek Insurrection that I will reference here is when Picard is talking to that one admiral played by Anthony Zerbe. He's like, Admiral, how many people does it take before it becomes wrong? And I think Gideon he's like, is there a way we can work around this to where these people don't get displaced or nobody gets their head busted? I mean, Gideon was really trying to be the diplomat here. Granted, a diplomat with a very large gun in the shape of a ship that could obliterate both those Earth Force carriers and destroyers in 2 seconds. But still, okay. But Gideon realized, I think, due to his interaction with Alwyn and with the townspeople and with Galen there with him, that he's like, yeah, we can't just force these people to up and move or be dislocated from their homes because of something that we need. There's got to be a way in between the two needs. So, does that make it? If even if it's only one, is it wrong? Does that mean it should not be done?
Yeah.
If only one person is harmed, then yes, you should take up the sword, you should take up the rifle, you should take up the cause to defend that one person's rights.
Yeah.
If those rights are within reason.
Yes,
That's one thing I'll say.
Your rights, kind of, as long as your rights don't infringe on someone else's.
Yes.
And in this case, I think it is completely the wrong thing to forcefully move or do something. And it's like insurrection. When does it become wrong? How many people?
Mm-hmm.
If there was 100 people on that planet, would it be wrong to move them?
Yes.
I'd say yes, but even though it's wrong, should it be done? That's another question.
Yeah. So, and to everybody that's in the chat, and everybody that'll catch us on the replay, leave your comments down below on our discussion today on this particular episode, and let us know what y'all think. Elysium, you brought up something in the private chat, and I do want to spend a little time on it before we wrap up for the day. So, I'm going to yield the floor to you. What's this thing we've got coming from the cast of B5?
There is nothing being kind of concrete at the moment, but JMS said it's already filmed and in the can. They're just working on post-production. It's not just from what we're getting. It's not just a sit down and chat among the cast and crew. It's an actual Babylon 5 story he's hinting at, a new material in the old universe before he begins in the new one. He's gotten all of the surviving cast together, and they've all Ivanova, Sheridan, Londo, Lockley are all characters who will be there. I think he said some of the recurring cast may be there, but he said definitely all the main cast who had their name appear in the credits, who are still surviving, have come back to do something. He's given no indication, but it's due for release early to mid next year, but he's giving away no more than that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does with. My only thing is the company it's being played on. I don't have a lot of love for the CW.
And I understand that, but you know what? I'm gonna go where the content's at, and if the content is something I want to watch, then darn, I'm gonna watch it. And yeah,
Hey,
Colin,
hey, I'm open. I'm wrong. Trust me.
No, I do understand your reservations, geek. Really, and Arch, Colin, drop the link down in the chat. You've got a wrench there for a reason, bud. So, by all means, I'll do my best to tune in and everything to that. So. Well, thank you, Lisa, for sharing that with us, because honestly, I am interested to see it, and here's hoping it's good. So, any other thoughts on this episode? Anything else y'all want to discuss? Anything we may have missed?
No, I think we really hit the kind of the morality of it from two opposing sides without, like you said, getting it hammered on your head.
Yeah, exactly.
And the one thing I do want to mention is both sides, while they were pushing on the edge, neither side wanted to push it to this isn't worth, to take a life. Though they took hostages, and though the Marines came in armed to clear it, none of them really wanted to hurt the other. So it was still, it showed good restraint and kind of put both sides in a good light.
Excellent point.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, folks, we are going to go ahead and wrap up for the afternoon. I do want to thank my two fellow council members, MB Geek and Mountains of Elysium. And to everybody that catches on the replay, make sure you smash that like button, share this out with all of your friends, comment down below with anything we brought up during the discussion. And of course, we will be back next week. As always, at our normal time, 3:30 Central. I do want to let you all know I will be releasing a channel update on my social media and on here on the Ambassador Wing, because next week is going to be a very special week in terms of yours truly. Be celebrating another birthday, which means another big blowout. I am taking some well-deserved time off from work, and going to be going live in the afternoon with returning with Afternoons with the Ambassador, and we're going to be doing some discussions on disaster films of the 90s. Also, going to be doing in the evenings, going to be doing some birthday bash reviews. Going to be discussing the films of Mr. Kevin Smith, that of course being the Jay and Silent Bob films from the 90s, that being Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, and of course Clerks 2. So be sure to keep your eyes and ears out for that update, and also once I set those streams up. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see all you there, or as many of you that can be there, depending on your time zone. And of course, if any of you want to join me for those reviews, get a hold of me through my social media, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and let me know, of course. So, but that all being said, folks, thank you again for joining us. Of course, once again, we send our very sincerest and deepest condolences to the royal family and to the people of Great Britain as they mourn their queen. But until next time, we'll see you all next time. And until then, this is the Council of One saying in 3, 2, 1. Zooty, zoot, zoot, zoot. Good night, Zooty. Good night, everybody.